What would you do if your own mother traded you away for just one horse? In the heart of the Old West, a young woman's life takes a turn that no one could have foreseen, leading her into a world of danger, survival, and emotions she never thought possible. Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story and where you're watching from and why you're following this. The harsh Texas sun beat down on the small settlement as Martha Wilson watched her mother haggle with the young Comanche warrior. At 16, Martha had become accustomed to her mother's callous nature, but nothing could have prepared her for this moment. Her heart pounded against her ribs as she realized what was happening. She was being traded for a single horse. "You'll go with him now," her mother said flatly, not meeting Martha's eyes. "I need that horse more than I need another mouth to feed." Martha stood frozen, her threadbare dress offering little protection against the scrutiny of the warrior who examined her with dark, unreadable eyes. He was tall and lean, his copper skin marked with symbols of his tribe, his long black hair tied with strips of leather. She guessed him to be no more than 25. "Mother, please," Martha whispered, her voice breaking. But Elizabeth Wilson had already turned away, leading the dappled gray horse toward their dilapidated cabin. The warrior spoke in broken English. "I am Swift Arrow. You come now." His voice was deeper than she expected, carrying neither cruelty nor kindness. Martha glanced back at the only home she'd known since her father died 3 years ago. The drought had taken their crops, disease had claimed her 2 younger brothers, and grief had transformed her mother into a hollow shell of bitterness. Perhaps this was inevitable. "I need to get my things," Martha said, surprised at the steadiness in her voice. Swift Arrow nodded once. Martha rushed to the cabin, ignoring her mother who was already checking the horse's hooves. Inside, she grabbed her father's Bible, a small wooden comb, and the faded daguerreotype of her family from happier times. She slipped them into a cloth sack along with her single change of clothes. When she emerged, Swift Arrow stood waiting, impassive as stone. "Will you kill me?" Martha asked, her blue eyes meeting his dark ones directly. A flicker of something, surprise perhaps, crossed his face. "No, my mother is dead, my sisters too, need woman for lodge." Relief and fear warred within her. Not a wife then, a servant, or so she hoped. The journey to the Comanche camp took 2 days. They traveled mostly in silence, stopping only when necessary. Swift Arrow proved neither cruel nor kind, merely practical. He shared his food without comment, and kept a respectful distance at night. When they arrived at the camp, Martha's legs ached from riding behind him, her arms stiff from holding his waist. The Comanche village was larger than she'd imagined, with dozens of teepees arranged in a semicircle. Women paused in their work to stare at her, some with curiosity, others with open hostility. Swift Arrow led her to a teepee at the edge of the camp. "You stay here," he said. "My lodge." Martha entered cautiously. The interior was sparse but clean, with buffalo robes spread across the ground and cooking implements hanging from the center pole. This was to be her new home. That night, as she lay on a buffalo robe, Swift Arrow kept to the opposite side of the teepee. In the dim light, Martha studied his profile as he stared at the dying embers of the fire. "Why did you choose me?" she asked finally. "Why not a woman from your tribe?" For a long moment she thought he wouldn't answer. "My wife died 1 winter ago, fever. No one want warrior who could not save wife." He turned to her, his expression solemn. "You have strong eyes, not afraid. Good for hard life." Martha clutched her father's Bible to her chest. "I don't know your ways." "You learn," he said simply, then closed his eyes, ending the conversation. In the following days, Martha was introduced to the daily routines of the camp. An older woman named Singing Bird took it upon herself to teach Martha how to prepare meals, tan hides, and perform the countless tasks expected of a Comanche woman. Though they struggled to communicate at first, Martha proved a quick study. "He is good man," Singing Bird told her one day as they worked together scraping a deer hide. "His heart closed since Moonflower died. You open maybe." "I'm not here to open his heart," Martha replied carefully. "I'm here because my mother sold me for a horse." Singing Bird's weathered face softened. "Many paths to same river. You here now. Make life." One evening, Martha sat outside the teepee, sewing a torn moccasin as Swift Arrow returned from a hunting party. He carried a brace of rabbits, and his expression lightened slightly when he saw her. "Good hunt?" she asked, setting aside her work. He nodded, handing her the rabbits. "Winter comes soon. Need more meat." As she prepared the rabbits, she felt his eyes on her. When she looked up, he quickly turned away, but not before she caught a glimpse of something vulnerable in his gaze. That night, as a storm raged outside, Martha found herself telling Swift Arrow about her life before, about her father's gentle wisdom, her brother's mischievous laughter, and even about her mother's slow descent into cruelty after loss had hollowed her out. Swift Arrow listened silently, his face illuminated by flashes of lightning. When she finished, he spoke softly. "My wife say, pain like river, can drown in it, or can let it carry to new place." He looked at her directly. "Your mother drown. You still swim." Martha felt tears sting her eyes at his unexpected insight. For the first time since being traded away like livestock, she wondered if perhaps this strange new life might offer something her old one could not. Understanding. Winter descended upon the plains with merciless intensity. Snow piled against the sides of the teepees, and icy winds howled through the camp. Martha had never known cold like this, a cold that seemed to steal the breath from her lungs and penetrate to her very bones. She had been with the Comanche for nearly 3 months now, and though she remained an outsider, she had established a fragile place for herself. Her hands had grown calloused from work, her skin darker from the sun. She had learned enough of the Comanche language to communicate basic needs, and the hostile stares had gradually given way to grudging acceptance. Swift Arrow remained a mystery to her. He treated her with a distant respect, never cruel but rarely warm. Sometimes, though, she would catch him watching her with an expression she couldn't decipher. One bitterly cold morning, Martha awoke to find Swift Arrow already gone. Singing Bird appeared at the entrance of the teepee, her breath visible in the frigid air. "Come," the old woman said. "Chief council today. All women prepare feast." Martha followed her to the center of the camp where women gathered around large cooking fires. The men were assembling in the chief's large teepee to discuss hunting territories with a neighboring band of Kiowa. As Martha worked alongside the other women, a young warrior named Hawkeye approached. He had made no secret of his contempt for her presence among them. "White woman thinks she is Comanche now?" he sneered, deliberately knocking over a basket of roots she had been preparing. Martha bit back an angry retort and silently began gathering the scattered roots. She had learned that showing fear or anger only invited more torment. "Leave her," came Swift Arrow's voice, sharp as a blade. He had appeared without warning, his tall figure casting a shadow over them both. Hawkeye's face darkened with resentment, but he stepped back. "You bring bad luck to our camp with this white skin," he spat before stalking away. Martha expected Swift Arrow to leave, but instead, he knelt beside her, helping to gather the remaining roots. "Thank you," she said quietly. "His words are wind," Swift Arrow replied, but his eyes tracked Hawkeye's retreating form with wary attention. That evening, as the council continued, Martha sat near the cooking fire with Singing Bird, who was teaching her to weave a small basket. The old woman's gnarled fingers moved with surprising dexterity. "Hawkeye dangerous," Singing Bird said suddenly, her voice low. "He lose sister to white settlers, hate fills his heart." Martha's hands stilled. "And Swift Arrow? Does he hate white people too?" Singing Bird considered this. "Swift Arrow sea person, not just skin. His father teach him wisdom before dying in battle with Texans." She paused, but pain still there, under surface like ice under snow. Later that night, Martha served food to Swift Arrow in their teepee. Outside, the wind had intensified, driving snow through the smallest openings in the lodge covering. "The council went well?" she asked, passing him a wooden bowl of stew. Swift Arrow nodded. "Kiowa share hunting grounds this winter. Game scarce." He studied her face in the firelight. "You learn fast. Work hard." Martha felt an unexpected warmth at his rare praise. "I want to earn my place." "Already have place," he said simply. "As your servant," Martha said, unable to keep a hint of bitterness from her voice. Swift Arrow frowned. "Not servant, lodge woman." He seemed to struggle with his thoughts. Different from white ways. Before she could respond, shouts erupted outside. Swift Arrow was on his feet instantly, grabbing his knife. Stay here, he commanded, ducking through the teepee entrance. Martha waited anxiously, listening to the commotion. After what seemed an eternity, Swift Arrow returned, his expression grim. Horses stolen. 3 men follow tracks. Thieves head toward White Settlement. Martha's stomach clenched. Will there be fighting? His eyes met hers. Maybe. Hawkeye leads tracking party. The implications hung heavy between them. If Hawkeye encountered white settlers, his hatred could trigger violence that would bring retribution upon the entire camp. Let me come with you, Martha said suddenly. I can speak to the settlers if needed. Swift Arrow's eyes widened in surprise. Dangerous. More dangerous to let Hawkeye start a war, she countered. I know these people, how they think. A long moment passed as Swift Arrow considered her words. Finally, he gave a curt nod. Get warm clothes. We ride now. Within minutes, they were galloping across the snowy plains. Martha clung to Swift Arrow's waist, the wind stinging her exposed skin. 2 other warriors rode with them, their faces set with determination. They followed the tracks for hours, the winter sun sliding toward the horizon. Martha's limbs grew numb with cold, but she said nothing, determined not to show weakness. Just before dusk, they spotted smoke from a small cabin in the distance. Swift Arrow signaled for them to dismount and approach cautiously on foot. Hawkeye's tracks lead there, one of the warriors whispered, pointing to hoofprints heading toward the cabin. Swift Arrow turned to Martha. You go first. Talk. We watch. Martha nodded, her heart hammering in her chest. As she started toward the cabin, Swift Arrow caught her arm. Be careful, he said, his eyes holding hers with unexpected intensity. Return safe. Something shifted between them in that moment. Something neither could name, but both could feel. Martha squared her shoulders and walked toward the cabin, acutely aware of Swift Arrow's gaze following her. As she neared the small homestead, she could see a man standing outside, rifle at the ready, while Hawkeye sat on horseback, tension evident in his posture. 3 horses, clearly Comanche by their markings, were tied to a post nearby. Hello, Martha called out, raising her hands to show she was unarmed. I've come to talk. The settler's eyes widened at the sight of a white woman emerging from the gathering darkness. Hawkeye turned sharply, his expression darkening when he recognized her. Who are you? The settler demanded, keeping his rifle raised. My name is Martha Wilson, she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. I see you have some horses that belong to the Comanche. The man's face flushed. Found 'em wandering. Wasn't stealing. Martha could sense the lie, but she kept her voice neutral. I'm sure it was a misunderstanding, but those horses are needed by families who will go hungry without them for hunting. White woman speaks for savages now? The settler spat. Hawkeye's hand moved to his knife, and Martha quickly stepped between them. No one needs to get hurt today, she said firmly. Return the horses and we'll leave peacefully. A tense silence followed. Then Swift Arrow emerged from the shadows, unarmed, his bearing proud and calm. The other warriors remained hidden, arrows nocked and ready. 3 horses, Swift Arrow said simply. No trouble. The settler looked between them, calculating his odds. Finally, with a curse, he lowered his rifle. Take the damned horses and get off my land. Martha exhaled slowly as Hawkeye dismounted to collect the stolen animals. She caught Swift Arrow watching her, a new respect in his gaze that made her stand taller. As they rode back to camp under a canopy of stars, Martha found herself pressed against Swift Arrow's back, drawing warmth from his body. Something had changed between them, a shift as subtle as the changing of seasons, but just as inevitable. You were brave, he said quietly, his words nearly lost in the wind. So were you, she replied. You chose peace when it would have been easier to fight. His hand briefly covered hers where it rested at his waist. Sometimes greater strength in peace than war. Martha tightened her arms around him, surprising herself with the gesture. More surprising still was that Swift Arrow did not pull away. Spring came to the plains in a rush of green and gold, melting away the hardships of winter with surprising swiftness. For Martha, the changing season marked nearly 6 months with the Comanche, half a year since her mother had traded her for a horse. The transformation in her life was mirrored in the land itself. What once seemed alien and harsh now felt increasingly familiar. She moved through the camp with confidence, spoke the language with growing fluency, and had formed genuine friendships with several women, particularly Singing Bird. Her relationship with Swift Arrow had evolved too, though in ways harder to define. Since the winter night when they had prevented bloodshed at the settler's cabin, a cautious warmth had grown between them. They spoke more freely, shared small gestures of consideration, and sometimes in the quiet evenings, exchanged stories of their pasts. On a bright morning, Martha was gathering edible roots with two other women when she heard the thunder of hooves. Looking up, she saw a group of warriors returning from a hunting expedition, Swift Arrow among them. "Good hunt," Red Feather, one of the women, commented. "The men bring many deer." Martha watched as Swift Arrow dismounted, his movements fluid and strong. He scanned the camp until his eyes found hers, and the slight nod he gave her carried more meaning than any words could have expressed. Later that day, as Martha prepared the deer meat Swift Arrow had brought, Singing Bird approached with a bundle wrapped in soft hide. "For you," the old woman said, her eyes twinkling. "Spring ceremony tomorrow. You need proper dress." Martha carefully unwrapped the bundle to reveal a beautiful dress of soft deerskin, decorated with intricate beadwork and patterns of blue and white. She ran her fingers over the craftsmanship in awe. "Singing Bird, I can't accept this. It must have taken months to make." The old woman smiled. "Many hands make work light. Women of camp help. You earn place here." Martha felt tears spring to her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, touching the dress reverently. "Swift Arrow see you in this," Singing Bird added with a knowing smile. "Maybe finally speak what in heart." Martha felt her cheeks flush. "I don't know what you mean." Singing Bird merely laughed, a sound like dry leaves in the wind. "Young eyes blind sometimes. Old eyes see clear." That evening, Swift Arrow returned to their lodge to find Martha cooking, her movements now practiced and confident. They ate together in comfortable silence until Swift Arrow spoke unexpectedly. "Spring ceremony important," he said. "Marks new beginnings, new life." Martha nodded. Singing Bird explained some of it to me. Swift Arrow seemed to be considering his words carefully. "Would like you to stand with me, as my woman." Martha's hand stilled, her heart suddenly racing. "I thought I already was your lodge woman." "Different," Swift Arrow said, meeting her eyes directly. "Lodge woman works, keeps teepee. Woman of warrior's heart, different." The implication of his words hung in the air between them. Martha felt a complicated mixture of emotions: surprise, confusion, and something warmer that she wasn't ready to name. "I don't know if I'm ready for that," she said honestly. Swift Arrow nodded, his expression unchanged. "No rush. Just wanted you to know my heart." He rose smoothly. "Going to council fire now. Think about ceremony." After he left, Martha sat alone, her thoughts in turmoil. She had come to respect Swift Arrow, to find comfort in his presence, perhaps even to care for him. But could she truly build a life here, so far from everything she had known? Could she love a man whose world was so different from her own? The spring ceremony dawned clear and warm. Martha donned the beautiful dress, allowing one of the women to braid her light brown hair in the Comanche style, decorated with small blue beads. When she emerged from the teepee, she felt the weight of many eyes upon her, but the only gaze she truly registered was Swift Arrow's. He stood tall among the warriors, his chest bare except for a ceremonial breastplate of bone and beads, his hair adorned with a single eagle feather. For a moment their eyes locked across the clearing, and Martha felt something shift inside her, like earth giving way after a long rain. The ceremony began with drums and songs. The entire tribe gathered in a great circle. Martha watched in fascination as dancers moved to the rhythm, telling ancient stories through their movements. Swift Arrow came to stand beside her, his presence solid and reassuring. "You look beautiful," he said quietly in English, the compliment all the more powerful for its rarity. "Thank you," Martha replied, suddenly shy. "Your people's ceremonies are beautiful too." "Our people," he corrected gently. "If you choose." Before Martha could respond, a commotion erupted at the edge of the camp. Warriors reached for weapons as a rider approached at speed, raising a cloud of dust. "Bluecoats," the scout called out in Comanche. "Many soldiers coming from south." The celebration dissolved into urgent activity. Swift Arrow turned to Martha, his expression grave. "Army comes. Maybe peaceful, maybe not. You stay close to me." Martha nodded, fear tightening her chest. She had heard stories of army campaigns against tribes, of brutal massacres justified as pacification. Swift Arrow led her to where the chief was already consulting with his council. Martha listened as the men debated their options: flee, fight, or attempt to parley. "White woman could speak for us," one of the elders suggested, pointing to Martha. "Tell soldiers we peaceful." All eyes turned to her, and Martha felt the weight of their expectation. Swift Arrow's expression remained neutral, but she could see the tension in his jaw. "I will speak to them if you wish," she said in careful Comanche, "but I cannot promise they will listen." The chief nodded slowly. "We prepare for all paths. Some warriors hide women and children in canyon. Others stay to talk. If talk fails, we fight." As the camp mobilized, Swift Arrow pulled Martha aside. "You should go with women to canyon. Be safe." Martha shook her head firmly. "I'm more useful here. If there's any chance to prevent bloodshed, I have to try." Swift Arrow studied her face for a long moment before nodding. "Brave heart," he said softly. Then, unexpectedly, he reached out to touch her cheek. "Martha, if fighting starts, run. Promise me." The intimacy of the gesture and the rare use of her name sent a warmth through her despite the dire circumstances. "I promise," she whispered. Within an hour, the army detachment came into view. 30 soldiers led by a captain with a hard face and cold eyes. They halted at a distance, and the captain sent a scout forward with a white flag. The chief, Swift Arrow, and 4 other warriors rode out to meet them, with Martha walking slightly behind. She could feel the captain's surprise when he spotted her among the Comanche. "I am Captain James Thornton," he announced when they were within speaking distance. "I'm looking for a white woman reportedly being held captive by this band. Would that be you, miss?" He addressed Martha directly. Martha squared her shoulders. "My name is Martha Wilson, Captain. I'm not a captive. I live with the Comanche by choice." The captain's eyebrows rose. "By choice? Miss, if these savages have threatened you—" "No one has threatened me," Martha interrupted firmly. "These people have shown me nothing but kindness. There's no need for your concern." Captain Thornton's expression hardened. "Nevertheless, I have orders to return any white captives to civilization. You'll be coming with us." Swift Arrow stepped forward, his face a mask of control. "She stays if wants to stay. Her choice." "Stay out of this, Indian," the captain snapped. "This doesn't concern you." Martha felt anger rise within her. "It absolutely concerns him, Captain. Swift Arrow is my—" She hesitated only briefly. "He is my husband in all but your law." A tense silence followed her declaration. Swift Arrow's eyes widened slightly, but he gave no other reaction. The captain looked from Martha to Swift Arrow and back again, disgust evident in his expression. "A white woman choosing to live as a savage's squaw," he said coldly. "Your family has been searching for you, Miss Wilson. Your mother reported you kidnapped." Martha laughed bitterly. "My mother sold me for a horse, Captain. She can hardly claim concern for my welfare now." The chief spoke in Comanche to Swift Arrow, who translated for Martha. "Chief says we offer peace and trade. No trouble with whites. Ask soldiers to respect our territory." Martha relayed this to the captain, who listened with evident impatience. "Tell them they're fortunate I have limited men with me today," he finally said. "I'll report that you refuse rescue, though God knows why. But be warned, the army won't tolerate raids or horse theft. Any trouble, and we'll return in force." After translating this for the chief, Martha added, "We understand, Captain. There will be no trouble from this band." As the soldiers prepared to depart, Captain Thornton leaned down from his horse toward Martha. "You're making a mistake, Miss Wilson. These people aren't like us. Sooner or later you'll regret choosing their ways over your own kind." Martha looked directly into his eyes. "Captain, it was my own kind who traded me away like livestock. Here, I found people who value me for more than what work I can do, or what price I might fetch." She gestured to the plains around them. "I've found more humanity here than I ever did in civilization." The captain shook his head in disgust and turned his horse, signaling his men to follow. Martha watched them ride away, her heart pounding with the enormity of what had just transpired, both with the soldiers and with her public declaration about Swift Arrow. When she finally turned to face him, Swift Arrow was watching her with an expression she had never seen before, something between wonder and profound gratitude. "You called me husband," he said quietly when they were alone. Martha met his gaze steadily. "I meant it," she replied. "If you still want me to be." In answer, Swift Arrow reached for her hand, entwining his fingers with hers in a gesture that transcended all cultural boundaries. "Always wanted," he said simply, "since first saw your brave eyes." As they walked back to camp together, Martha realized that the path that had begun with her mother's cruelty had led her, against all odds, to where she truly belonged. Summer blazed across the plains, painting the landscape in vibrant colors and filling the air with the sweet scent of wildflowers. For Martha, now known among the tribe as Bright Water for the clarity of her blue eyes, the passing months had brought a contentment she had never thought possible. Following the spring ceremony and the confrontation with the army, she and Swift Arrow had formalized their union in a traditional Comanche wedding ritual. The entire tribe had participated in the celebration, even Hawkeye offering grudging acceptance of her place among them. Their life together had fallen into comfortable rhythms. By day they each attended to their responsibilities, Swift Arrow hunting and protecting the tribe, Martha working alongside the other women, learning the ancient skills passed down through generations. By night, they shared a teepee that had truly become a home, their initial awkwardness giving way to a deep and tender bond. On a particularly hot afternoon, Martha sat with Singing Bird near a shallow stream, preparing reeds for basket weaving. The old woman had become like a mother to her, patient in her teachings and generous with her wisdom. "You smile more now," Singing Bird observed, her gnarled fingers working nimbly. "Happiness suits you." Martha dipped her feet in the cool water. "I never expected to find such happiness here. When my mother traded me away, I thought my life was ending. Instead, it was just beginning." Singing Bird nodded sagely. "Great Spirit has strange paths for us. What looks like Death Valley can lead to Mountain of Joy. Swift Arrow has been so patient with me," Martha said, watching minnows dart around her toes. "Teaching me your ways, never forcing me to forget my own." "Good balance," Singing Bird agreed. "You bring new ideas too. Seeds you planted grow strong." Martha smiled, thinking of the small garden she had started near their teepee, introducing some vegetables from her former life to the tribe's diet. It was a small thing, but it symbolized the blending of their worlds. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by the sound of approaching horses. Martha looked up to see Swift Arrow returning with several other warriors from a hunting expedition. Her heart still quickened at the sight of him, tall and proud on his painted stallion. As the hunters dismounted, Martha noticed Swift Arrow favoring his right leg. Concerned, she quickly gathered her things and went to him. "You're hurt," she said, seeing blood seeping through his legging. Swift Arrow shook his head dismissively. "Small cut. Buffalo hunt dangerous sometimes." Despite his protests, Martha insisted on examining the wound back at their teepee. The gash on his thigh was deep, though not life-threatening. She cleaned it carefully with water and herbs Singing Bird had taught her to use, then bound it with strips of clean cloth. "You have healing hands," Swift Arrow said, watching her work. His hand came up to touch her cheek gently. "Bright Water suits you. Name was well chosen." Martha leaned into his touch. "I'm still getting used to answering to it." "Both names good," he said with the hint of a smile. "Both part of who you are." Later that evening, as they sat together outside their teepee watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and reds, Swift Arrow seemed pensive. "Something troubles you," Martha observed, having learned to read his moods. He was silent for a moment longer. "Soldiers seen again, south of hunting grounds, building something." Martha felt a chill despite the summer heat. "A fort?" Swift Arrow nodded. "Bad sign. Where soldiers build, more whites follow." The implications hung heavy between them. More white settlements meant pressure on hunting grounds, potential conflicts, and threats to the tribe's way of life. "What will the tribe do?" she asked. "Chief calls council tomorrow. Some warriors want to fight. Others say move north, find new territory." Martha considered this. "And what do you think?" Swift Arrow gazed at the darkening horizon. "Fighting brings death. Moving brings hardship." His eyes met hers. "What matters most is protecting our people, our family." The word family resonated deeply with Martha. Though they had not yet been blessed with children, the possibility lived in both their hearts. "Whatever comes," she said, taking his hand, "we'll face it together." The following day, Martha attended the council alongside Swift Arrow, a privilege granted to her as both his wife and a bridge between two worlds. The debate was heated, with younger warriors like Hawkeye arguing passionately for resistance, while older members counseled caution. When asked her opinion, Martha spoke carefully. "I know the soldiers and their ways. Fighting them directly would bring much suffering. But I also know that promises made to tribes are often broken." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "Perhaps there is a middle path, neither surrender nor war." The chief, a wise man named Thunder Speaking, leaned forward. "What middle path do you see, Brightwater?" "Adapt without yielding," she suggested. "Learn what we can from white ways that might be useful, their medicines, their farming methods, while keeping our own traditions strong. Make alliances with other tribes. Present a united voice that is harder to ignore." Her words sparked intense discussion. Though not all agreed, Martha felt the weight of being truly heard and respected, a stark contrast to her former life where, as a woman, her opinions had mattered little. As the council concluded without a final decision, Thunder Speaking approached Martha and Swift Arrow. "Wisdom in your words, Brightwater," the chief said. "You see with eyes of both worlds, this valuable to tribe in difficult times." Martha bowed her head respectfully. "I only want to help protect the people who have become my family." The chief nodded approvingly before moving away to speak with other elders. Swift Arrow looked at Martha with undisguised pride. "You speak with power now," he said. "Not afraid. I learned courage from you," she replied softly. Their moment was interrupted by a young boy running toward them, excitement written across his face. "Swift Arrow, travelers come. White man with Comanche guide." They hurried to the edge of the camp where two riders were approaching slowly, hands raised in peaceful greeting. The white man appeared to be a trader, his pack horse laden with goods. His Comanche guide was from a northern band, known to some in the tribe. The visitors were brought before Thunder Speaking, who welcomed them cautiously. The trader, who introduced himself as Thomas Bennett, spoke through his guide, offering trade goods and information. Martha's presence clearly surprised Bennett, his eyes widening when she addressed him in English. "Mrs. Wilson?" he exclaimed. "Martha Wilson from the settlement near Fort Griffin?" Martha was startled to be recognized. "Yes, though I go by Brightwater now. Do I know you, Mr. Bennett?" "I traded with your father years ago," Bennett explained. "Good man, Robert Wilson. I heard about your situation." He glanced uncomfortably at Swift Arrow. "My situation is exactly as I choose it to be," Martha said firmly. "This is my husband, Swift Arrow." Bennett studied them both with curious eyes before nodding slowly. "Fair enough. Actually, I carry news that might interest you particularly, Mrs. Brightwater." "What news?" she asked, suddenly apprehensive. "Your mother passed last winter," Bennett said gently. "Pneumonia took her quick, from what I heard." Martha felt Swift Arrow's hand come to rest supportively on her shoulder as she absorbed this information. The news stirred complicated emotions. Grief not so much for the bitter woman her mother had become, but for the loving parent she had once been, before hardship had hardened her heart. "There's more," Bennett continued. "She left a will. The homestead is yours, legal and proper. 5 acres and the cabin. Not much, but it's something." Martha stood perfectly still, processing his words. Land of her own, of their own, in a world where indigenous people were increasingly being pushed from their territories. It represented both opportunity and complication. That night, after Bennett had traded his goods and departed with his guide, Martha and Swift Arrow sat close to their fire, discussing the unexpected news. "Land could be useful to tribe," Swift Arrow said thoughtfully. "Place to trade, to meet with whites on our terms." Martha nodded. "A foothold in both worlds. A place no one could easily force us from." "You want this?" he asked, his dark eyes searching hers. "Return to